Well, this is interesting. Really? That's awful. Possibly that one. Evening, guys. I don't know what the instructions are anymore, so I'm literally going to be freeballing building these Mark II Marines, which shouldn't be difficult, but probably will end up being more of a pain in the backside than I hope it is. Mainly because I think I've already got the wrong leg. It's Curtis. How you doing? So yes, I'm finally breaking out my Saturnine box set that I picked up. I did buy it because it was too good a deal to miss. So yes, I failed. I'm weak. I'm one of those people. No, that doesn't look like it's right either. So it might actually be this leg. Just strikes me as odd that that would be the leg. Unless it's this horrible half-piece one. Which again, it could be. Oh. Curtis Sega just being irresponsible at work. Nice. Oh, that's good. You can do some Rogue Trader stuff. That's cool. I used to be able to be very irresponsible at work, and then unfortunately we decided to go for a new security accreditation, and then all the fun stopped overnight. It is. It's the absolute garbage half-piece leg that I use. Of course. Because why wouldn't it be? Yeah, so we used to be able to have like Steam and games installed on our work machines. We used to be able to have, I used to have like Krita, which is like my Photoshop knockoff that I use for my thumbnails, where I could do my digital drawing. I actually had my digital drawing tablet at work with me. I had Age of Empires 2 installed on my work PC. Yeah, all sorts of stuff like that. It was great. And then, they were like, that all needs to be removed before the end of the day. And thus the good times ended. Except for one guy who technically has his own laptop. He just runs a virtual machine on it for work, so he can still get away with it. I've done it again. There is a different piece. Why am I not doing this properly? Come on. Must be that one then. Yes. Like I said, I've thrown the instructions away because I spilt something on them. So I'm just trying to figure out if I can do this without them. Monkey and a Panzer, kind of rough. You caved on the deal within a week. Good old GW decided to announce the individual boxes. Those kits coming out, real high turnaround. Yeah, well, I wanted several parts of the box. I've always said that I wanted several parts of the box, and when I priced it out for what I want, it worked out at basically the same price as what I would have ordered it from my recaster. If I factor in the shipping from China. So I was just like, do I spend the same amount that I'm already planning on spending and get to deal with plastic models? Or hey, do I use like turbo cancer resin? And I thought I'd give plastic another go, you know. That's one. Huzzah. Not Rogue Trader era stuff, but I grabbed a 412 miniature from Necromunda and made him into a Rogue Trader working on a D&D party for Warhammer. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah, Rogue Trader warbands are always fun. Inquisitional warbands are always fun. It's one of my plans for my next projects is my 3rd edition Witch Hunters. So lots of inquisitional stuff for that. You see, back in the day, we would traditionally put the backs and the fronts of models next to each other so we knew which one was which. Or they'd all line up and it wouldn't matter. But GW knows better, right? You've got to be able to stick all these chain bayonets on here and all the other gumph we need. Amras, we use the same pincers for models. Yes, well, I got these with my... these are actually off my 3D printer. Made by Zoron Corp, apparently. Very sharp, very nice. I just thought they were a bit too nice to be used on the supports on my printer, which I'm probably going to just tear off with my hands. So I, reassigned them. Okay, so it's not that back. It might be that back. It might be that one. It's most definitely that one. There's a tiny little locator stud down the bottom on the waist that I've only just noticed. Back in high school, the computer lab had a copy of Halo Combat Evolved copied onto every machine. We had one teacher who turned a blind eye to the LAN parties that occurred every time we used the lab. I used to do the same when I was at boarding school. The computer lab was split into two parts. You had the regular computer lab, which was for use for everyone. And then you had the sixth form computer lab, which was only used for the oldest kids. And here's new Bando law for you. I had to redo a year because I'm clinically retarded. So technically I should have been in the same year as all those kids in the upper class, but I wasn't. So we used to play Counter-Strike on those computers. So what we would do is me and some friends is we'd meet up in that lab to play Counter-Strike, and we would do it when we were supposed to be doing cross-country, doing our games, that sort of thing, exercise, PE, whatever you want to call it. And you'd start running, and you'd go running off into the distance and disappear, and run round the corner into the woods and double back on yourself and basically just sprint straight to the computer lab. And in the computer lab we had one copy of Counter-Strike 1.5, which was the last version you could run before it needed Steam and therefore needed its own individual copy. And we would play Counter-Strike for an hour, 2 hours every day, and it was great. We also installed Neverwinter Nights on those PCs and had a massive LAN party of that as well. It was great fun. Curtis, I'd only want the Mark II Marines for my Iron Warrior veterans. Yeah. I mean, it's a good use for them. These will be 20 guys that are going into World Eaters. I've got pads and heads on their way. They're just held up in customs from China. And then I will be adding those on. And then the Mark VI Marines over here, they are for my Iron Warriors. Because nothing makes me happy like Iron Warrior players crying about me using Mark VI Marines. Plus the fact that I've already started doing Mark VI Iron Warriors. Demon Hunters and Witch Hunters Codex from 3rd edition to act as a pseudo-rogue trader codex. Yeah, brilliant way of doing it. Mixing the 3.5 Guard Codex and Bob's Your Uncle. Well, the Witch Hunters and Demon Hunters Codex are 3.5. You basically could. Part of that codex was that it says you can take the following units from this codex and this codex, and it lets you take certain units from the Guard Codex and from the Imperial Guard, not Imperial Guard, sorry, Space Marine Codex, to show that, you know, this is an Inquisitor who has secured forces from, you know, other parts of the Imperium, which is pretty cool because the actual Witch Hunters side of things, for example, is quite limited. You know, you get your Sisters of Battle and you get the Inquisitor and a couple of other units, but you don't get a huge amount. So my working army list at the moment is 3 squads of Inquisitional Stormtroopers in Valkyries, the Inquisitor and their retinue in a Valkyrie as well, an orbital bombardment, because that was one of the heavy support choices for them, was just literally you place down the biggest template you've got and it goes just wherever you want it, and then you roll a scatter dice. And then a junior Inquisitor in a Rhino with a smaller retinue. And that's about, I think it was 1,500 points. Brian Hansen, Junk Waffle. We had one PC in our computer lab that had Wolfenstein 3D on it. Nice. Nice. At my first boarding school, we had Half-Life Uplink, the demo for Half-Life 1, installed on the science lab computer. And the science teacher used to let us sit in there at break time and play it as well. We later found out that he was a nonce, so that was not so great. And obviously why he liked all the kids being around while he did his marking. But hey, you know, Half-Life. Swings and roundabouts. Monkey the Panzer, our lab was connected to a vocational program meant to teach us computer repair. Issue was the room was dependent on the local community actually burning stuff in. During long downtimes we just gamed. Yep, I assume you mean bringing stuff in. I did IT at college, and most of my time was spent finding my way around the web filtering and then telling the IT team how we did it, to the point where they just asked us to stop telling them. Because, you know, we wanted to get onto MSN Messenger and chat with our friends, yo. Yeah, one of the ingenious things they did was they blocked all traffic on Internet Explorer. So we just started using Firefox, which had no web filtering on it because it was done by the browser policy, not by the router or by the firewall. So they were like, oh well, you can't use Firefox, so we'll block any exe file called firefox.exe. So we just renamed it to Internet Explorer.exe, and it works. And it was all just dumb stuff like that, just all the time. Oh, you can only install a copy of Windows on a machine like this in this amount of time and this much resources, and then we just spend all day trying to prove them wrong. It was just like the most petty thing you've ever seen. And now I've worked in IT for a decade, and I absolutely am bored out of my mind. Shouldn't say that. My boss watches my streams from time to time. I mean, I'm dedicated to my job and I absolutely love the environment and everything I do, and it's challenging, etc, etc. Mark II, I haven't found my Mark II or Mark III legs for the Sky Hunter jet bike, so maybe I should have some Mark VI dudes for my Iron Warriors after all. Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't keep the crew of the jet bike separate and put it on a different, on a different sprue, so they could just do different different crews for them. That just seems really weird. Right, where's the first 5 done? No instructions, they've passed the Bando test. Yeah, let's put the backpacks on. Pretty sure it's supposed to be a Mark II pattern helmet, but the skull-faced helmet the Iron Warriors have some art of would fit a stripped-down lighter armour look for the Legion. Pretty easy to find STLs for. Yeah, it is. There is actually, back in, I think it was 4th edition? It might be the 3rd edition codex. Pretty sure it was 4th edition. There is some artwork of the Heresy-era Iron Warriors wearing Mark VI armour. And basically it's an apothecary leaning over the body of a dead Iron Warrior while his compatriot looks on kind of mournfully. And in the background you can just make out the fluttering banner of the Imperial Fist on top of the fortress, kind of showing how, like, they get the glory while the Iron Warriors get absolutely hammered. And they're wearing Mark VI armour, but they've definitely got, like, Mark II style helmets, which is kind of cool. There's also a piece of artwork of some World Eaters in Mark VI armour in this. I think it's in the same codex, actually. Both are Karl Kopinski pieces of artwork, so they're that black ink drawing style. Karl Kopinski is probably my favourite Warhammer artist. Chris Homniuk, hello there yourself. God, the filter at my college was wild. Well-known prawn sites, 4chan, unfiltered, but random stuff like the World of Tanks forum was basic social media was blocked. Yeah. Yep. Luckily, like, social media and stuff was all relatively new to things while I was at college. Facebook had really only just started. MySpace was kind of the big thing. Google, was it Google Plus? I think it was called. Google tried launching their own one, and that bombed. MySpace was kind of the biggest one at the time. And yeah, MySpace was big because you could put music on it, and you could use HTML code, and you could tweak the page to look different. So everyone's actual, like, home page was unique and was their own, which was kind of cool. I quite liked that. And then it had a top friends listing, and you had like 10 slots for your best friends, and it was a big social faux pas if you had the wrong people in your top friend slots, which is quite funny now you think about it. And then we used a lot of MSN Messenger to chat to people, because back in the day, Boomer Bando, we couldn't just, like, text each other constantly, because a text cost like 10p, and when you're putting like 15 quid's worth of credit on your phone for the month, it's not a huge amount of text messages you got away with. And there was no, like, WhatsApp or anything like that. You didn't get really apps on your phone. You couldn't chat online on your phone. Hell, data would just guzzle money. Even Wi-Fi wasn't that common, to be honest. So yeah, we used to spend all day at college on MSN chatting to each other. Then you'd get home and you'd chat to your friends on MSN some more. It was good fun. Simpler times. Not a fan of these backpacks. There's a lot of like little nubs and weird bits that get in the way on these. Oh, beware the creaky chair. Oh, that's better. It's very warm. Dr. No. Who are these fellas for? These Mark II gentlemen are going to be for the World Eaters. So I won't be finishing them. It will just be bodies and backpacks, because the arms, I need to print off some like despoiler like arms, and I've got the heads and the shoulder pads and everything coming from China, but the ship is currently stuck in customs apparently. It's been over 2 weeks, and I'm starting to feel the pain, guys. I need my China order. Chris says, got the pronunciation right. Thank you. Yes, I try my best. And, I love your channel, by the way. Thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate it. Your terrible choice in YouTubers will not be held against you. Well, not by me. Nuremberg, on the other hand, they will judge you badly. Brian, he cuts the hoses off the Mark II and the Mark III backpacks. Yeah, I can see why you would do that. Yep. Back in my day, before Facebook, Doc, you know I'm a boomer. I'm not really a boomer. I'm deep in millennial territory, me. That's almost worse. We've got nothing. We didn't get the good housing. We didn't get to claim that we were all constantly mentally ill and all wonderful special genders. We just got to be kind of bad at everything. And what are we known for? Painting our houses grey. Millennial grey. That's our addition to history is a offensive, warm mid-tone grey. Inoffensive, sorry, I should say. We are Alfarius. Pour glue into your keyboard. No. This is my new keyboard, and I will not be doing that. Well, not on purpose. Like, it will probably happen at some point, and I will be angry at it. Chris is watching from Canada. Oof. The land of maple syrup and trucker convoys. Curtis has 6 squads of the old metal Cascarin that have been primed, and I still need to put paint on them. Yes, I'll be using the old metal Cascarin for my Inquisitional Stormtroopers, and the recaster I use also has the unreleased extras, because there was the sculptor who did them actually sculpted a bunch more for his part of his training, and they were never released, which includes a sergeant with a power fist, I think there's another special weapon, and there's a Stormbolter. A guy with a Stormbolter, and it's really cool because obviously the Stormbolter is like Space Marine sized, so he can't hold it like this because it would be, this wide. So instead he holds it with a grip on top, like, the smart gun almost, which is really cool. I do like it when the sculptors show off like those unreleased miniatures. And a lot of the time they put them up on eBay and they sell them because, you know, they're trying to make some money back themselves. Trish Carden over on Facebook, she did loads of some of the best monster sculpts you'll ever see, and she's always posting up like old masters and stuff that you've not seen before. Trish is great. Go give her a follow at some point. She sculpted like all the classic tree men and stuff, a lot of the dragons. Like, she showed how she actually did all of the sculpting of the dragon's wings, and it's with like brass sheets, which is, you know, ingenious that you put the wing out with like brass sheets and you draw where the fingers are going to be, and then you bend it like up into like the loops are like the bends of the wings, and then sculpt the fingers in. It was just, watching the video of the tutorial she put out was really interesting. Monkey, honestly, I'm amazed MySpace is still around. It now lacks that old internet feeling, but also does not look particularly modern. I think it's a music site or something. Okay. Biggest sins of millennials is not painting our homes in unassuming grey. It is the slow decline of music that finally turned into shades of unassuming. Yeah. Thanks, Tay Tay. Toss me the source of those unreleased Cascarin. I need to find some of those, especially with the Power Fist. I would, but I'm not allowed. Do. Yeah. The mystery deepens. Favorite brand of jam? Favorite brand of jam? I'm not one of those people that's like really brand loyal. So I'll try anything once. Well, nearly anything. I don't know. Usually whatever's cheapest. Favourite type of jam, on the other hand, I would probably have to say raspberry. I'm a big fan of raspberry jam. I think it's I don't think people give raspberry jam enough credit. Plus, I like the little crunchiness of the like you can pop the seeds between your teeth. It's amazing when you've done this once, you can just suddenly start picking it up so much quicker. Oh. So what's everyone think about those, the new combat forces? They're not even combat patrols, they're full-on combat forces for the Heresy. I'm rather interested in them, if I'm going to be honest. I'm just very apprehensive over the price, and I'm hoping that they're going to be good value. Favorite type of maple syrup? Again, I don't really know. I think the one I buy the most, I think, is called Clark's, and I don't think it's even real maple syrup. I think it's just like maple-like syrup. course the Canadian would ask me about maple syrup. Maybe copium, but I've started to notice GW is doing more and more remember this key jangling. That feels like GW is starting to see older Warhammer as the new hotness, at least to milk us with. Yeah, no, I can see where you're coming from with that. There is definitely some nostalgia bait out there. Lots of member berries. A lot of like the limited edition models are very heavily inspired by that. You know, the what's it called? The Warhammer TV models are always something like that. Yeah, a lot of it feels... Oh, I've absolutely mangled this guy's foot. Nope. Yeah, I some of it's pretty egregious, it really is. Watch Captain Elaine of the Death Watch. Hey Bando, halfway interested in one of those Mechanicum forces for my Theramus Night Lords. That's cool. Yeah, I've got Thalax and Castellax on the way. So those will be actually allied to my upcoming Alpha Legion force, which you may have seen, the test model for a while back, which is the very different, very not blue Alpha Legion. And the colour scheme for them is... I do have some very, very old test models. Is white and red, or slightly off white and red. And yes, this was when I was making them Dark Mechanicum, and I was using Delac bodies with Skitarii weapons, but there is no Skitarii-esque models for them, and I can't really stand tech thralls. Maybe if Skitarii, I might think about using this style of them for is it Pelasts? I'm not entirely sure, but it'll be mostly robots, because robots are cool. Rabbits. Heresy needs a tank version of Combat Patrol, like 3 Rhinos and a Sikaran. I do agree. It almost needs to be... So Warlord Games used to have a wonderful deal on their website, which was called the Wheels of Steel, and you could buy any 3 vehicles and it would knock 10% off the price. They kind of need to do the same. They should just... Any 3 Heresy vehicles, or any 3 Heresy tanks of a certain type, so, you know, any of the plastic tanks, so 3 Rhinos, 3 Predators, 3 Sikarans, whatever. If you purchase 3 of the same, it knocks 35% off the price, or something like that. I think that would do wonders for the game, and probably mean that people are going to buy a lot more tanks. Because, yeah, like you said, Rhinos, you need a lot of them. And, yeah, they're quite expensive. But yeah, if they just did boxes of like Predator squadrons or Sikaran squadrons, I would probably pick one up. These World Eaters are going to be mostly a tank company, so I do need... I think the list so far has 6 Predators in it. 6 Predators, 2 Sikaran, I think it was. I can't remember what else is in there. I've already got 1 Sikaran. I've got Sikaran and a box Dreadnought already painted up and done for them, which I've done videos on before. It's going to be 2 squads of despoilers with chain axes in Rhinos. And yeah, mostly it was just going to be Predators with auto cannons and heavy bolters, mostly. And I was planning on using the Mars pattern, so the older, squarer Predators, with all the Forge World optional, like, extra armor kits for them, because they look really chunky and kind of violent compared to the smoother, rounded Deimos pattern Predators, which are fine. I like the look of the Deimos ones as well, but these guys were just really brutal and like barbaric. Which is funny because brutal and barbaric isn't kind of what I'm going for with them. As you guys know, I like to do weird, different and wrong themes for my armies. And my World Eaters, I wanted them to be one of the last formations that really has not embraced the Butcher's Nails. And yeah, so they they're still savage because they're World Eaters, but they're not utterly obsessed with close combat and just kill, maim, burn yet. Ironically, the fluff I've started writing for my Iron Hands, on the other hand, is the opposite. They are one of the most censured formations in the Iron Hands, having begun implanting cybernetics to regulate their emotions and increase aggression. Not quite like the Butcher's Nails, but like a discount local knockoff of the Butcher's Nails, which is why they are led by a jump pack Praetor, not a Forge Lord or anything like that. And I've used a lot of the spiky kind of Reaver style Mark IV heads for his command squad to show that they are like a very aggressive looking formation. Not interested in Mark VI, have plenty of Rhinos, love the Leviathan with how pedantically that model builds, but my friend group does Secret Santa every year and it would be a good box for them. Yeah, if you've got a friend who you want to get into the heresy, I think it's going to be one of those boxes that's absolutely great for that. Be like, hey, here's this box, let's I've bought 2 of them, let's have a painting jam, let's build them. Why am I putting glue on your arms? You haven't got any arms. It'd be great to have like a painting jam. You get your friends together and you build one of those boxes sort of together. This Friday, actually, my friends and I are meeting up to do a painting jam, get through some backlog, which is going to be good fun. I think I'm going to be painting the first of my assault rams. I'm going to start painting the Blickwolf, because I have 2 of them for my Space Wolves, and they are named Bleckwolf and Witwolf, which is Old English for obviously Black Wolf and White Wolf. And they'll be painted, 1 in black, 1 in white, surprisingly. There we go, that's all the Mark II Marines put together! Huzzah! Look at all these bits I've got left over that I'm probably not going to use. Yet. Now I got some Mark 6 Marines. That's taken me 45 minutes and 45 seconds to build 10 guys. That's depressing. Right, let's see if I can do these ones quicker. If the combat force is 150 Canadian, then yes to me. If it costs more, then no way. But I left my thoughts on your video yesterday. Yes, the price is going to be the absolute linchpin of these boxes. Like, there's nothing else about them that anyone matters. Every thread, every post I see about them, the majority of the comments are, it's going to be cool, it depends on the price. And I think that if it goes for more than... if it's more than, like, the Battle Forces or the, the actual limited edition box sets that come out, people aren't going to be interested. I think it needs to stay at £100 or below. And, like, that's pushing it, to be brutally honest. Honestly, to me, the £100 mark is such a huge barrier for purchase for a lot of things. Like, I get it that, inflation happens and all this other stuff, but I think there is a mental thing about the number, the £100 number, that really kind of you want to try and avoid. You really want to try staying below that number as much as possible. I am not going to use the studded shoulder pads because I need to paint the hazard stripes on those ones, and then they're getting the Legion symbol on the other ones. That's the words I'm looking for. I can't English. I got the dumb. Well, dumb. English. Gonna take a shot in the dark with prediction. Some kind of apocalypse rules focusing spin-off game will be made to try and appeal to older 40k players who want to play pre-8th 40k back but won't jump to heresy. I think you're kind of right there. I think there's going to be a big push if the Scouring book set takes off and does well. I think there will be a big push to kind of recapture the feel of classic 40k, and get people, older players, as you say, into the heresy, and they'll kind of, I don't know if they'll rebrand. I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but I think there will be a push. You'll see classic kits coming back. You'll see lots of like hobby articles. They'll have Notley and stuff doing the GW Red Era style paint jobs. But I think the Scouring is their next big thing. I think the Heresy is actually going to kind of take a little bit of a downturn. I think we may get one more edition of pure Heresy, and with our Mark 4 Marines or Mark 5 Marines in the box set. Valrak seems to think we'll be getting Mark 5 Marines this edition, which we might do. I would have thought we would have got Mark 4, to be honest, but hey, Mark 5's fine as well. But we'll get one more power armor mark halfway through this edition, and then we'll get 4th edition, and it might be sooner than people think. But we'll get 4th edition, and then I think 5th edition will be a soft reboot into into like the Scouring, and that's when the starter box set might introduce aliens. We might get orcs and Mark 7 armor, and it will be the campaign book of the Scouring, which will be good because having orc rules, for example, in this game will be cool because then we can do things like the Great Crusade. You can have your Lunar Wolf Mark II fighting at Eleanor, which is cool. I really like the idea of Mark II, Lunar Wolves fighting at Eleanor or that sort of thing. Don't tempt me with an Iron Warrior or Iron Hands Predator company. All Predators all the time. Yes, Curtis, do it. Bizkit Camp says oi oi Bando. Well, oi oi yourself. Monkey in a Panzer. Don't know when they got moved over, but I noticed some of the old GW Demon engines got moved to Heresy, which is obviously further screws the lore, but kind of nice to see those not dead. Yeah, I think we've firmly established they don't care about the lore anymore. I got no problem with demon stuff coming over, and by the time the siege happens, demons are all over the place. Demons are being funky and weird. Basically, it's one of my big complaints about the Heresy is like a lot of the traitor legions fall into their 40k stereotypes too quickly. I know the Death Guard don't because they're in it by the siege, but like the Emperor's Children, for example, just total degeneracy within like 5 minutes of the Heresy starting. And it really shouldn't have been like that. It should have been slower, more drawn out, and it should have been like the siege is where they finally broke them and they became the monsters that we know now. Because otherwise there's very little difference between them and their 40k counterparts, and it just becomes they're just shiny purple Emperor's Children, not pink and black Emperor's Children now. And I'm a strong believer that Heresy needs to keep its identity. It needs to be separate. It needs to be its own thing, because if it doesn't retain that, a bean counter is going to come along and go, why are we doing, effectively two versions of 40k? Nice to finally catch a stream. Well, Slinch, don't worry about it. It's only the second one in quite some time. It's not going to be a scheduled thing. I just thought I'd do one because I wanted to get some stuff built, and I thought rather than sitting here and watching some god awful 90s horror film, I would chat to people and build some community goodwill. Talking of dodgy 90s horror movies, I watched the 1999 Christopher Lambert Beowulf last night, and it was a glorious, full-on late 90s, early 2000s horror sci-fi, just absolute shit show. It had that industrial kind of techno style soundtrack. The sound dubbing, there is something about that era's sound dubbing that you just can't replicate. Gratuitous slow motion and backflips and tilted angles on every camera shot, and every woman for some reason looks like Kate Beckinsale. It was gloriously of its time, and I loved every second of it. The movie itself was absolutely barbaric to the story of Beowulf. But if you like swords and monsters and dodgy CGI, then you'll absolutely love it. GW can easily score a win with these boxes if they don't take the piss. Absolutely, like they really could. If they just decided to sell them as a lost leader, just to get people into the Heresy, they could absolutely do it. as long as they can keep them in stock, they can keep the price decent, and put out a couple of articles of people building them, and oh hey, Steve here just bought the command squad upgrade, and he's turned 5 of his Mark 6 Marines into a command squad. Wow. Oh, but Billy over here, he's decided to go and buy the melee weapon upgrade, and he's turned them into a despoiler squad. Ooh. Which can sit in his rhino and race towards the enemy. Ooh. Oh, Sarah over there, she picked up the Leviathan melee weapon upgrade set and has made this fantastic Night Lord's Leviathan. Okay, it's very little effort. Very little effort to make the community actually build this up themselves. But you know what GW is like. Maximum profits, minimum effort. Fifth edition Badab War. You see, Chris, you're making me angry. No. Yes, Badab War would be an absolutely phenomenal campaign book. Once you have Mark 7 armour out there, it is literally, you take a book the size of Liber Hereticus or something, and you just go, hey, this is the Badab War. It's like the Horus Heresy, but happens right before Guilliman wakes up. Ironically, so close to when Guilliman waking up that, he probably would have sided with Huron, if I'm going to be honest. And, hey, you want to do that and then do a series of books on the Badab War as well? I mean, I wouldn't say no. 3 books showing Huron Blackheart, going from veteran sergeant to company captain to the tyrant of Badab, and his slow descent into madness as you realise just how difficult his job as the Warden of the Maelstrom was, and it justifies every single thing he did, and suddenly you realise that the Tyrant's Legion and all that were the good guys, and that actually the Administratum should have supported them. Oh, we could have a dozen novels in the first 6 months. You've got the perfect bad guys in the Minotaurs. You've got the tragedy of the Lamenters. You've got the edgy Carcharodons, which, for some reason people love. I don't know why. They're weird. But then you've got Mantis Warriors, and you've got, Star Phantoms, Knights Errant, Red Scorpions. So many characters, so many different, chapters. You can do a series of characters for those and do 3 books on every single chapter. You can write the same fights from different sides. You'd make a fortune. As long as they're good. As long as they're good. And it's not just an Aaron Dembski-Bowden wankfest. I kind of wish they either with the command squad upgrade sprue or the melee character upgrade sprue instead of the heavy weapons upgrade. Yeah, that would be cool to have those. I get that they want to put them in there for, because this is the problem. We want to be able to buy that box set multiple times because it's going to have a really good saving. GW wants us to buy that box set maybe once or twice and then buy everything separate. That's the problem. So what they need to do is they need to put things into that box set that you're not going to need too many of. That's why you always have an HQ choice in those big sorts of box sets, so you don't buy 2 or 3 of them. That's why the Leviathan's in there, because you generally don't have more than 1 or 2 Leviathans in an army. And the chances of you needing more than, 10 missile launchers in an army is incredibly slim. Now, you could be absolutely wild and you could go out and fill all your heavy support slots with missile troops, which would be hilarious and super inefficient. I've got a Chaos Iron Warriors army for 40k with some Heresy bits, and I kind of want to play them in Heresy because I want to collect more armies for different systems. Am I anti-Heresy? I don't think so, Andre. I think that back in the day, a lot of us did that. We used a lot of Chaos Marine parts, a lot of regular Space Marine parts to make, what looked like Heresy armies back before, Heresy was a thing. And I think if you just make a little bit of an effort, you can easily make the army itself look very Heresy. Oh. I think the issue there is, do make an effort, don't just assume, they're Space Marines, people will accept my Space Marines, because they won't. Even if you are making like a late Heresy army, you want to try and make them look Heresy-esque. And that's things like shoulder pads, backpacks, weapons, colour schemes. You don't want them looking too much like 40k. Iron Warriors are good because a good Iron Warriors 40k army doesn't look too different to an Iron Warriors 30k army. In my opinion, same with the Word Bearers. The Word Bearers just turn it up a couple of notches. Iron Warriors too. You add a couple more spikes and that's about it. But that's because I like their more plain renegade aesthetic over the Chaos Space Marine. But that's just me. Chris, I don't want to make you angry. My bad. Chris, you're not making me angry. It was a joke. Badab is one of my passions. I am trying to paint every chapter that was in the Badab War. I've got some. What have we got over here? Sons of Medusa, Lamenters, Mantis Warriors, and Marines Errant, Howling Griffins. I think that's all of them that I've done so far. Yeah. Red Scorpions were going to be my next ones. Now I was going to do them in the classic red and black rather than the grey. I was going to do a Tank Hunter squad, which I can do now because, I can easily print the multi-melters I wanted to equip them with. And I might do some Raptors in their classic blue and yellow as well, because that's a scheme you don't see very often. Just as a reminder, back in the olden days, the web store would occasionally have fan-painted models in their product pages. Yes, they did. Remember some weird Beastmen conversions showing up in unrelated kits? Yes, yeah. You could submit your painted models to appear on the GW web store. That is an absolute blast from the past. I had almost forgotten that. Wait, there is anybody who thinks Huron was a bad guy about it? Yes, some people do. Some people think Huron was the bad guy. Those kind of people pay their taxes in advance and allow themselves to get pegged. Have a great day, Bando. Got to go. Okay, so Chris has probably just missed me apologising to him, so my bad. Curtis, is it weird that I like Gilliman in 40k for his more human moments, his attempts to make a joke, etc.? No, that's good character development. That's showing something interesting that, we don't get a lot of in 40k because it's a very cartoon setting, everything is just shouty and angry. So the idea of a 11-foot tall demigod cracking a joke is human. It adds some humanity, which is great. Okay, so that took me 20 minutes. That was a lot quicker. See, the Mark 6 are easy to build. Everyone should stop hating on Mark 6 Marines. And you can easily make them into knockoff Mark 4. Molotov Kraken's here, ladies and gentlemen. Molotov Kraken, the internet celebrity himself. The man with the most silky smooth voice in all of Ireland. The problem is with the Leviathan... Oh, it's gone. You only need one box. Yeah, the mech and auxiliary box have very much made it to buy a crap ton of times. Well, I don't know. The mech one's got the Thanatar in, and you don't particularly, you know... What, you're going to buy more than 3 of those, really? I don't think so. Not unless you're going to trade them with people. And I don't think they sell the Thanatar weapons separately, so it's a little difficult to, swap out the parts. I mean, I would. Wait, I thought Bobby Fingers was the smoothest talker in the whole of Ireland. Oh, Bobby Fingers and the Rubber Bandits wish they were as smooth as Molotov Kraken. No, no, no. Taxation is Theft by Chris Wright. Yep, that would be the book. Would like to see some of those really, really weird Badab alternative schemes done with the modern techniques. The Space Sharks, technically not the Kakarodons, had a wild one of yellow and red. Yep. The yellow and red stripy Minotaurs one is another one you don't see very often. You don't see the yellow and blue Raptors one. You don't see the Tiger Claws, sort of black and gold, very often either. And the red and black Red Scorpions is quite rare as well. Although, to be fair, Red Scorpions in general are pretty rare. Talking about paint schemes, I thought I'll... you guys may have seen this before, which is my Iron Hands. Which I've done in this metallic-y, greeny, purple scheme. It doesn't show up very well on camera because it doesn't capture the light quite right, but as you tilt it, it shifts from green to purple. Because I paint it silver and then I put over purple and green in random splotches, and then I just dull it down with black. So this is my current scheme for the Iron Hands. These guys aren't particularly well painted anymore. I'm kind of thinking of stripping them and redoing these ones. But this was the original scheme I did for them, in a sort of very dark blue and red, with very tanned skin. And I can't find these files anywhere on my computer for these bodies. I do want to try and find them again. I know they were made by Logic, but I can't find the actual files, which is kind of annoying me. So yeah, that's the old scheme and the new scheme. You can see what I mean when I said that they looked a bit more like Dark Angels. So yeah, this guy will get stripped at some point and repainted. And then I'm currently painting up the veteran squad. They're a bit darker, a bit more black in them, and I'm just trying to paint up the hammer to match this one. and they also fight alongside the Raven Guard. And these are the main protagonists. They're fighting the World Eaters. And this is the other project I'm currently working on, which is sanding this thing smooth and filling all the gaps in and sanding it and filling it. You see there's a lot of sort of gaps on the bottom here, so I just keep filling it with gloss varnish. Very thick gloss varnish, and then letting it dry and just sanding it down. Works absolutely fine. Absolutely smooth as a baby's ass. So that's it. Those guys are done. I'm now going to have to wait for all the other parts to come along, which means they'll probably be destroyed by the time they get here. So let's see what else we've got comments wise. Always liked the idea of an Iron Warrior could be mistaken for a regular Marine, even up close by laymen or even some later founding chapters. Yeah, that is kind of what I think as well. Like I like the idea of renegades over chaos space marines. That's why I like sort of the Night Lords and the Iron Warriors, because they are, you know, what's the difference between someone like the Mortificators, who are covered in bones and skulls and other trinkets and relics and stuff, and then you see a Night Lord who is covered in bones and blood and trinkets and stuff. To the average person, they're just going to see two different Space Marines covered in dead things, and it's not going to look horrendously different. I wish we got more Xenos versus Xenos campaign strokes. Yes, the problem is obviously that Xenos kits just don't sell as well. But ironically, the reason they don't sell as well is because they don't get as much attention as Space Marines. So if we did get like a War in Heaven campaign book, which was, you know, Necrons versus Eldar, it probably would sell if it got a load of new kits and it got, you know, if they took the risk. Now Marine armour is technically a weird ceramic thing. Ignore Iron Warriors, unpainted metal. But I wonder how Marines would look in World War II style red primer coloured armour, like it was that rushed out. Well, actually, that's exactly what I do for my Sons of Horus. Oh, my Sons of Horus have red. I'm just trying to reach to get one without knocking everything over. That's what the chipping is on my Sons of Horus, is it's the red primer under the green showing through. So I beat you to it. Also, let's put bayonets on las guns, or las cannons. Ooh. Keep clipping the camera with my microphone. The difference is the body parts on the Night Lord's armour is still twitching and screaming. Yes, yeah, I suppose that's true. My Iron Warriors are neutral mercenaries in 40k. They'll fight for whoever pays. Sometimes it's chaos. Sometimes it's begrudgingly the Imperium. Yeah, I get that. The Armageddon Salamanders scheme is a rarer sight than the Bad Ab camo. Which one's the Armageddon scheme? Is that the one where it's a white guy? Is that the Armageddon scheme? I do think it's funny that Codex Armageddon has salamanders without their helmets on, and every single one of them is like blonde hair, white skin. For me, the one I want is I want a Gorka Morka book. I want a book that gives me orcs versus orcs and just absolute, you know, hilarity of just silly, you know, silly orc stuff. Like here's how we make a bunch of, you know, vehicles. You know, here's rules for, you know, silly characters, you know, trucks, attack bikes, snotling pump wagons, that sort of thing. And give me an army list for the rebel grots again. Do a made to order and release, you know, release, what's it called? the red gobbo, because that classic metal red gobbo model is absolutely fantastic. All of Gorka Morka was good. It was just rushed out. It was released at the wrong time. Gorka Morka would be... It'd be great nowadays. It'd be great as like the as like a Kill Team-esque game. And it wouldn't need a huge amount of like dedication in parts and kits and stuff. It would mostly just need to be a book and a bunch of tutorials on kit bashing models, which is why GW would never do it. Could be a fun idea for an army of renegades that have decided they like the odds of rejoining the fold after the heresy fell apart. Plenty of chapters, nobody knows where they came from. Yep. There are a lot of them that are rumoured to be from Traitor Genestock, the Silver Skulls. A lot of people think the Silver Skulls are actually from Dantioch and his guys, but actually one of the writers hinted that they're actually from Loyalist Death Guard. Then there's the Minotaurs, which again, the writer of one of their books has heavily hinted that he believes, or he wrote them in with the idea that they were Loyalist Iron Warriors. There was another one that was possibly World Eaters, which again might have been the Minotaurs. The Caradons have always been rumoured to either be the Ashen Claws or, leftover Raven Guard or possibly Night Lords. There's lots of scope for it, and a lot of the fun is just kind of coming up with the theories and discussing it, but part of me always wishes that to get the explanation, because theories are one thing, but it's always nice knowing the truth. I always like to know what's going on. Orcs could probably be broken down into at least 2 more codex-style books of Gork and Mork aligned to supplement the main codex. We can try giving orcs shooting beyond less. Yeah. I kind of like the look of that. We were talking about this in Discord a while back about the idea of bringing back a Cork and having it have a huge following of smaller orcs, and almost like an orc civil war against Gazkul, because he's the prophet of the War, and then suddenly this much bigger, much stronger, nastier orc has turned up, and all the other orcs are just like, have you seen this guy? Yeah, no, we came up with some ideas for books of that, and it was some of the ideas were pretty good actually. It was stuff like orc battle moons actually being Cork spaceships, and the fact that this guy isn't some great warlord, he's just a foot soldier, and yet he's terrifying compared to even Gazkul. Tabletop wacky races. Yes, Gork and Mork very much was like tabletop wacky races, that's right. One of my favourite rules was that the cargo capacity of the vehicles was however many orcs you could actually balance on the vehicle. And if you moved the vehicle and they fell off, they took whatever it was, like a strength 3 impact hit, and were left behind. So you literally had guys taking damage as they fell off the back of vehicles, which is brilliant. They did come with these really horrendous bases. They were, like, if it were, this is the size of our normal bases, they were probably that, like literally like a third of the thickness, which was great for plastic models because they didn't really have a problem with that. But some great big metal knob with an axe above his head, that thing was falling over constantly. But for me, the Rebel Grots were some of my favourite. I like the idea they don't even consider themselves loyalists, but instead of just going along with what keeps them alive, slap a new symbol, repaint the armour, yell some slogans, don't get caught. That's pretty accurate, yeah. And the shoddy record keeping of the Imperium make it so that is incredibly easy to do. You know, disappear for 100 years, appear out of nowhere. Oh, we're the you know, we're now the praetors of cheese. We're descended from the Primarch. We don't know which Primarch, but we've been fighting a war for 1,000 years in this rift. What do you mean you've got no record of us? That's heresy. You've made an enemy for life, and that's it. You know, done. Oh. It's gone, Jim. We've lost it. It's stuck to my sock. There we go. Yeah, it would be pretty easy for a traitor chapter to disappear. For me, my favourite traitor chapter like that is the Relictors, and I've talked about them before. They are just a fun old White Dwarf codex that I want to do at some point. I like the hints at the truth, but the truth is always just beyond your grasp, like the Blood Ravens. Yeah, I can see the attraction of that, I really can. But now that we've got the story moving forward, it's Pandora's box, and now it's like, oh, I want to know the truth for everything. You know, I want to know, is there actually an Alpha Legion civil war? Do we have, you know, loyalist Alpha Legion out there? Which one died? Was it Alfarius or was it Omegon? You know, this is the problem with having the forward-moving narrative, is it's not a setting anymore. I now must know. You must expand the universe and tell me the answers. Yeah, you did this, GW, to sell books. Now you've ruined your setting. Quark, Space Marines before they were cool. Digger knobs need to be the next faction GW adds to 40k. Yeah. Digger knobs were an interesting one. They had some really nice models. Problem was they were an expensive army because they were all metal. But the idea behind them was quite funny. They're literally the descendants of the Mechanicum who ran into the Necrons, went absolutely batshit, and then ended up worshipping the Orcs. Which is wild. You know, they're stranded on the planet, and they've ended up caught between a literal rock and a hard place. And the funniest thing is that it's heavily implied that the planet that they've crashed on, that is where Gorgon Walker takes place, might actually just be Armageddon. Not Armageddon, sorry, Necromunda. But on the other side of the planet. Which is, again, really stupid. Oh. Clearly the salamanders on Armageddon were caught in one of the ash storms of the world. Yep, that's it. get rid of the silly little fluff on the bottom of this gun, the little Imperial Eagle. We don't need that. Heresy Space Marines don't carry bling around on their guns. I'd rather get new chapters, legions and planets or straight up other stories, because we don't need to know what happened to the 2 Primarchs, and the Blood Ravens are a good example of that creation. Yep. Oh, you got so many really cool chapters from 2nd edition onwards that I would rather see them get expanded. You know, go and do me novels on the Brazen Claws, on the White Panthers, the Black Consoles, that sort of thing. Pick those guys, get them out there. Expand that side of the universe. And if you get the chance to do it, pick up the 2nd edition Ultramarines Codex, because that's got loads of bits in it of just other chapters. In fact, it's also where I believe the Black Templars show up the first time. With chest eagles on their armour and everything. Or it was the 3rd guy all along. You know what? I would be absolutely okay if there was a 3rd head to the Hydra. I know some people hate that, Omegon's a thing. I would be absolutely here if there turned out to be, Lambda or Kappa or whatever the hell they'd end up calling him. Steve. The third head of the Hydra. And, yeah. No, I'd be fine with that. Delton, yeah. Wow, 28 people are watching my stream. I think that must be some sort of record. Don't you people have something better to be doing? Did both? No. Only one of the brothers is dead. We don't know actually. This is the problem with Alpha Legion shenanigans: is we don't actually know what is true, what is not. It's heavily implied that it's Alfarius, and it's one of those. It's such a dumb moment, because it's very much like, oh, Rogel Dawn, I'm here to tell you a secret that you must know. And he's like, bro, you've betrayed our father, I'm just going to kill you. It's like, oh no, but I've got this thing to tell you that's super important. And it'll win you the war. And he's like, yeah, I don't care, I'm here to kill you. It's just, it's bad writing for plot's sake, unfortunately. Good evening, Too Old for Two Wheels. Amras is watching me and doing his work. That's good, that's good. Alpha Legion player here, we'd rather keep the ambiguity. Yeah, I can see that. I always like the Alpha Legion. I tell you what, you didn't see many Alpha Legion armies back in like 3rd edition. 3rd, 4th edition, you really didn't see many of them. They were incredibly rare. Oh, my phone is at 1%, so this stream is actually going to end now, guys, so I will catch you later. Thank you very much for watching. Sorry, I didn't realise it had got so low. Thanks, guys.